tonight's parsha, it still fits very well with the tune of Elul, because Elul is all about the king in the field, and this Sicha is all about the role of a king, a Jewish king, versus a prince, a nasi. They're interchangeable, seemingly, in halacha. The Torah seems to be, in fact, Mashiach is called a nasi, but he's also a melech. So in the Torah language, it seems that they're interchangeable. But the Rebbe in this Sicha is going to show a very vast difference between a melech and a nasi, both halachically, and also their functions are very different. Going to be discussing the difference between the heart versus the brain. There are leaders that are more heart and leaders more like the brain. Okay, that's what the Sikha is going to be talking about. Before we get to the Sikha, I always like to throw in something with the Parsha of the week, a new Parsha, all about fighting in a war. It might be a sensitive issue that I'm going to mention now, but I'll mention it anyways. Hope I don't get into trouble. When you go out to war, upon your enemy. It doesn't say towards your enemy, with your enemy, which would be in Hebrew, likrat, or el, oivecha, to your enemy, in oivecha, with your enemy, but al oivecha, upon your enemy. Why? And the answer is because the war is being fought on high. You're going out to a war, it's already being fought by the one above. It shall happen now also, hopefully in Israel. Hashem is fighting your war, you just have to participate. But you're participating in a war that's being fought from on high. And what happens in the next few psukim? Tells a story of a Yafas Toar, a beautiful woman who happens to be a prostitute, hired by the enemy to distract the soldiers from what they should be doing, get them involved in all kinds of immoral sexual activity, depravity, promiscuity. These are not innocent civilians. Part of the war strategy. They know how to get the Jews down because they have God on their side. Well, let them fight against God and then they'll lose their protection. So it says, strangely enough, if one of the soldiers has this passion for her, Wisconsin.
Good memory.
Just got better. Yeah, I don't remember your name again.
Bailey Bolton.
Oh, I'm not sure. Okay. Nice Jewish name. Okay. Bailey. Wisconsin. Now, so he meets this beautiful woman prostitute in the war, and he has this passion he can't hold himself in. You're allowed to, even though she's not Jewish, to actually have a relationship with her, be intimate with her. I'm not going to go into all the details. I just want to focus on one thing. This is so strange. Why would the Torah allow such a thing? So Rashi says that because the passions are so high, if we're not going to allow it, he'll do it anyways. It's a very powerful, intense Yetzer Hara, and it's almost impossible to avoid. That's Rashi's answer. Comes the Or HaChaim. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Chaim ben Attar, who was a contemporary of the Baal Shem Tov. They never met. Had they met, Mashiach would have come. They were equals, living in different parts of the world. Baal Shem Tov and him knew each other virtually through their souls. They had soul, and they Baal Shem Tov said, we get to the same place, but he gets there a little faster than me. These are holy people. So Chaim ben Attar, who explains many of the psukim according to Pshat, simple intimation, throws a lot of hints, a lot of halacha, and a lot of heavy secrets. And I'm not going to get into the whole details because we'll lose track of the Sicha, but I want to just throw in a question and just maybe one part of the answer. He asks the following questions. Biggest question is, what? If you are in a war being fought from Hashem, you're seeing open miracles, like in the 6-Day War, you're seeing open miracles. And who would go to war? They wouldn't have any Tom, Dick, and Harry go to the war. He's the whippersnapper. We have to be on a high level of tzaddikim to go to war. A tzaddik, while Hashem is showing miracles, is going to have a Yetzer Hara for a prostitute? Powerful question. In fact, if you had problems with your Yiddishkeit, you were exempt from war because you would only mess up. They had special people who fought in the war. Then, interestingly, it says like this. It says, you will meet Eishes Yefas Torah. How do you translate Eishes Yefas Torah? the wife of a Yefastor, the wife of a beautiful woman? What's that supposed to mean? It sounds, like wokeism. The wife of a beautiful woman? It should say Isha, a woman who's beautiful. It says Isha Yefastor. So Rashi says it means even if she's married. Isha Ish, and a few words missing in the middle. Arachai doesn't accept that. He says, no. It literally means the wife of Yefastor. What is that supposed to mean? Then it says, V'chashaktaba, and you will desire in her. Ba. You know little Hebrew? How do you say desire her? The word her in Hebrew? Ota. Osa. How do you say in her? Ba. What does the pasuk say? You will have a drive, a passion for what's in her. Not her, in her. What in her? Her. Rashi does not address this question. Time does. He asked some more questions. These are the 3 questions he asked. I want to just tell you one droplet of his answer because it's a long answer. We're not discussing tzaddikim who are fighting in war having to derive a desire for a prostitute. That's not what's happening. But because they are involved in a mitzvah of fighting a war and seeing miracles, they are privy and have a radar system of detecting something holy within something very unholy. They can detect if they have a passion for this woman in the middle of a war, where Hashem is showing open miracles, it probably is, that there's a spark of holiness, a special neshama trapped in this woman. It's not the woman. The beautiful woman is not, the woman is not the beauty. It's that soul that's beautiful. She is like the wife. The actual prostitute is like the receptacle. She's the wife of. She belongs, she has that spark within her. And that's what the soldier is getting attracted to, not her. The Yefas Torah is not referring to the beautiful woman, it's referring to the beautiful soul that only tzaddikim can detect. And that's what's driving him. There's a lot more to it than that. But he does say that sometimes a soul of a very holy soul is trapped in a very unholy environment or body. And the way to extract it is a holy person. Holiness, like a magnet, has magnetic force to extract and extricate, free, to free that spark from that person. Or sometimes that spark causes that person to go through conversion. Either one of the two. We have a story with Chamor, not a donkey. It's a story with Yaakov and when Dinah was violated. So Chamor, Shem, violated her, and Yaakov besides himself, and that happened. If her brothers were besides themselves, and what did he promise? I'll give you a wide land. Rachavas yadayim. Rachavas means broad. You'll have thousands of acres of land. Will all be yours. You'll become rich. Trying to persuade Yaakov's family. The word Rachavas, Reish Ches Beis Tov, spells Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. The soul of a holy tzaddik who lived later was trapped in this villain called Shem. When Dinah, who was a holy girl, had relations, he pulled that soul out, and that soul was able to be born later on in history to become the great sage, Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, who later on was a martyr. But he was a holy person, and sometimes we see holy sparks are in the most vile individuals. Who could tell? Who could detect that? Only someone who's fighting in a holy war and tzaddikim. An average person wouldn't detect that. He would just see the girl. That's it. He has much more to it, but I just wanted to throw this out at you. Rus, on the other hand, and some other Nama and Rus, these are the great converts, had that spark, but that spark affected them, and they became one with that spark and converted. Okay, now we go to the Sichos. Yes, sir. Yeah.
It also says that you come to hate this woman, and you have to let her grow her nails out, and you.
Okay, so the rest I know. So the rest of all the psukim I haven't explained. Based on this Nakuda, he explains all the rest of the psukim, but if I go into that, it'll take up a whole class. Okay. Yes. Voice note. He makes me. She works on it. She makes me think a lot. You have very good questions, and I have to.
You think of good questions? That's the biggest compliment.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I have to think, you know. My problem is I don't think too much. I am too ADD. I just, it makes me stop, makes me think. Very good. Okay. Very yellow. Okay.
We have a secret to follow.
Okay. Why am I not giving this out? So here's the Sicha. Hold on a second. Yeah, pass it out. It's in English. It's the original Sicha is in Yiddish, of course, but it's also translated in English, you could say, the heart and mind of the people. If anyone wants to say, you're more than welcome. If you don't want to say, I'll say. I can see English, you can read English. You want to do it? Go ahead. Loud and clear.
Torah commands, appoint a king over yourselves. Rashba describes the
Stop.
position.
Who's Rashba? Rashba. Anyone ever hear of the Rashba? Okay. The Rashba was a student of the Ramban, Nachmanides. You ever hear of the Nachmanides? Okay, good. Nachmanides lived about 2 generations after the Rambam, Maimonides. He had a student called Rabbi Shimon Bar Aderes. Rashba, Rabbi, the Resh stands for Rabbi Rav, and I think it's Shimon or Shmuel, I keep forgetting. The Shin is Shmuel or Shimon, and the Beis Aleph is Ben. His father's name was Aderes. He was a great scholar, to say the least, and he was also in the medical field. He was a great doctor as well, and a powerful Mekubal. He knew Kabbalah. He had every quality you could think of. A very famous student of the Ramban. Continue. The Rashba. Now we know who the Rashba is.
Describes the position of a Jewish king and one of his responsa, stating, the king is considered as the entire community. For the entire community and all Israel is dependent on him.
That's what the Rashba says. Similarly,
Midrash Tehuma states,
a different. A medrash is a homiletical expedition from the stages of the Mishnah. So this goes way back 2,000 years, and there's a medrash called Tanchuma. Okay.
the head of the generation is the entire generation. Or to use Rashi's phrasing, the Nasi, leader of the generation, is equivalent to the entire generation, but the Nasi includes all.
This is Rashi in Parshas Chukas. Okay. Continue.
When speaking about a king, Rambam states, his heart is the heart of the entire congregation of Israel. Straightforwardly, the king is the heart of the entire congregation of Israel. Because just as the vitality of the entire body is dependent upon the heart, so too the entire congregation of Israel is dependent on the king. To refer back to Rashba, all Israel is dependent on him.
Okay, so the king, the Rambam here is the Sichos focusing on the Rambam. Rambam refers to the king, uses the metaphor as the heart of the Jewish people. The heart of the Jewish people. Not the brain of the Jewish people. I will soon talk of the heart. And the Rebbe is going to focus a lot. Why did he choose the heart? Let's continue. Next page 288. On the next side, but whenever you get tired, let me know.
Okay.
It's no pressure.
Clarification is necessary. True, all the limbs and organs of the body receive the vitality from the heart. However, the brain governs the functioning of all the limbs and organs of the body, including the heart, and they are all dependent upon it. For this reason, although the heart is also considered the king in relation to other limbs and organs of the body, the head is considered the king over all the limbs and organs, including the heart.
And just to throw in something here, look in footnote 12, we have a quote some sources here. The word melech, how do you spell melech? Mem, lamed chaf. There are 3 most vital organs of the human body. I think there'd be more than 3, but there are 3 that are counted: the brain, the heart, and the liver. And each one of those, the first letter of those 3 words are mem, moach. Moach is the brain. That's the mem of melech, of a king. Lamed, the middle letter of the king, lev, heart. And the chaf of the word king, melech, kaved. Kaved is the liver. So which of the 3 letters is the brain? The first. We all know the first letter of a word is the ringleader of the word. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, the first letter of the word is the most important letter of the word. It's like the source. All the other words receive from that first letter. So if the first letter of melech is mem, which is Moach, wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it be more appropriate for the Rambam to refer to a Melech as the brain of the Jewish people, not the heart? Why the heart? This is the whole Sichos focused on the quality, the advantage of heart over the brain. Very often we talk about the advantage of brain over the heart. This Sichos is all about the selflessness of a king, hinted in the fact that he's metaphorically compared to the heart. Okay, let's see it inside. So the question is, next paragraph, why then?
Why then is the king, whose role is to lead the nation, like a shepherd who leads his flock, as is written, who will lead them out and lead them in, compared to the heart of the entire congregation of Israel?
Why the heart and not the brain? The Rebbe makes the next piece here. The Rebbe makes this question even stronger. So I'm going to give you a rest, and I'm going to read the next paragraph, next chapter, chapter 2. Why the heart and not the head? In the written law, we find that the Torah also uses the title Nasi, which means a prince, a leader, but also the word Nasi is used regarding a king. As it is written, if the Nasi will sin, and when it talks about in Parshat Vayikra, where the king sins, he's called a Nasi. Oh, so we see that what? Rabia? And the last name is a complicated one.
Marush.
I probably spelled it wrong.
Right.
5. Now we have 5. 5 neshamas. 5 is a holy number. 5 parts of a soul, Jewish soul. 5 books of Moses. Okay. 4 is also good, but 5 is better. 6 is really good. I don't count. So Nasi, when the Torah wants to talk about a king, it uses the word Nasi, interchangeable. Asher Nasi Yechta, if the Nasi will sin. Both Sifra is a medrash on Vayikra, and the Mishnah interpret this statement of the Chumash when it says the Nasi will sin as referring to a king, not a Nasi, not a prince or a leader, plain leader, but an actual king. As those texts continue, the one over whom there is none except God. I don't like the word his Lord, but anyway, there's no one over him. The king is the highest figure amongst the Jewish people. So the pasuk does clearly say there's no one above him, and that's a melech. We'll see later. A Nasi does have someone above him. A melech does not have anyone above him, and yet in the Torah we find that the melech, king, is referred to as a Nasi. So they're interchangeable seemingly. Okay. Again, both Sifra and the Mishnah interpret the statement as referring to a king as those texts continue. Where it says if the Nasi will sin, it says, who is the Nasi? The one whom over there is none except God. He's God, meaning the king, because only the king can you say about him that there's no one above him except for God. A Nasi has someone above him, and a Nasi has the king. So if we're talking about someone who is the greatest Jew and nobody above him, it must be the Melech, and yet, strangely enough, the Torah refers to him as a Nasi. Similarly, if you look a little further on page 289, continuing, in Yechezkel's prophecy and in other sources, Mashiach, who will reign as a king, the ultimate king, called Melech HaMashiach, the ultimate king, is referred to as a Nasi. We find in Pesukim verses in Yechezkel, Hashem says that he calls Mashiach a Nasi. So although in the Torah language, in the Torah lingo, the Nasi and Melech are interchangeable words, nevertheless, simply speaking, the title king is more prominent than the title Nasi, which is also used because Nasi can be used for a leader of a tribe. You have a leader of the generation, a leader of just one tribe. Melech, when you say Melech, there's only one king in a generation. It's the Melech over all the Jews. A Nasi could be a Nasi just over your neighborhood, over a tribe. Does not have to be a Nasi of all of the Jewish people. Sometimes the word Nasi could mean Melech, but the fact that Nasi could sometimes not mean the real, true, all-encompassing leader shows that the word Melech represents something more than Nasi. Regarding the discussion at hand, we find that Rashi's term, here's strange, the Rashi's term, the Nasi of the generation, is referred to in the Medrash as the head of the generation. So Nasi, which is a lower level than king, is referred to as the head, the brain of the generation. The king, who is higher than the Nasi, is called the heart of the Jewish people, according to the Rambam. That's now bigger. Now the question got just bigger. Not only is the question, why did Rambam choose to compare a king to a heart rather than a brain? We find someone who's of a lower level, a lesser level of leadership, i.e. the Nasi, not the Melech, who's referred to as the brain, the head of the Jewish people. Head is higher than the heart. Head is here, heart is here. Mind over matter. Even if you're not talking about your nefesh elokis, that Rebbe points out in the Ha'ara, people, human beings, have the ability to control themselves. You can control your passions, even your animalistic passions, even the nefesh bahamis. If you want, you can actually control yourself. People always do that. When you know you're going to lose your job, if you get angry, you control your anger. People always have, no, mind over matter. That's why the head is on top. So if the Melech is the highest person, why would he be referred to by the Rambam as the heart? And the Nasi, which is a step lower, prince, a leader, but not the ultimate leader, why is he given the metaphor of a brain? That's the question that I was asking here. Comprende?
Kind of. I mean, it's still also used like interchangeably, so it's hard to distinguish it.
Yeah, I know, but still, well, they're interchangeable in Torah language. In the words of the Chachamim, they're not interchangeable. They actually mean two different things. So it's kind of strange, and we'll see further. Why would the Rambam choose? The Rambam knows very well that a Nasi, which could also mean not even a king, but just a regular plain leader, he's called the brain of the Jewish people, and yet the Melech, with much higher authority than the Nasi, would be used as he would be compared to the heart. Why? Regarding the discussion at hand, we find that Rashi's term, the Nasi of a generation, is referred to in the Midrash as the head of a generation. This reinforces the question raised above. Why is the king, who is more prominent than the Nasi, referred to merely as the heart of the entire congregation of Israel and not the head? Okay. In order to understand that, we have to first understand the function of a Nasi and the function of a Melech. How are they different? They have different roles. A Nasi is a Torah leader, a giant in Torah, someone who is like the head of a Supreme Court, highest authority, the greatest sage, the greatest brilliant mind of all the Jewish people. And he would teach Torah to people. The Melech fight wars, make decisions about war tactics. Of course, he would also make sure to reinforce Torah laws as well, but more as the patrol. You would make sure that you would dare not violate the words of the Nasi. So the Nasi was the Torah leader, and the king was one who was involved, constantly involved in very actively involved with the people, leading them, helping them, having a much more intimate relationship with the people than the Nasi. The Nasi was, was like in a different world, his own world, in its own Torah world. And he would shoot out, messages and directives and guidance of how to live your life. But he wouldn't deal with the people in such a same way as the Melech. As we'll soon see, the Melech fighting war doesn't only mean a war with ammunition, physical war, the fighting with guns. It also means a spiritual war too, but not necessarily the Torah giant of the generation. At least when the Melech was actively being a Melech, not who he was in his private life, but when the Melech is active as a king, when he's playing the role of a king. I don't see what the Rebbe says over here. Very important, it's a very important Sichos here. The above can be understood by first offering the following preface. In the vernacular of the sages, how the Chachamim vernacular, how they perceive, or how they look at their perspective, there's a fundamental difference between the titles king and Nasi, unlike the Torah, which has them interchanged, and the sages, when you see in Gemara or in other sources, they are not interchangeable. When the sages use the term king, the meaning is a straightforward, a ruler, as is the meaning of the term when used by the Torah. By contrast, they use the term Nasi to refer primarily to the Nasi head of the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin was the Supreme Court located in the actual Beis Hamikdash, which Gazit was called, certain office over there in the Beis Hamikdash. That's where the Supreme Court would be situated, and the head of the Supreme Court, the highest authority, would be the Nasi. And then you would have a deputy, a second in command, who would be the Av Beis Din, but the Nasi would be over everyone. He would be in charge of all the judges of the Supreme Court. Not just one of them, but one above them. Then he had a deputy. So these are Torah scholars. Let's go again. By contrast, they use the term Nasi to refer primarily to the Nasi, head of a Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin, means the Supreme Court. Anyone know what the word Sanhedrin means? Sanhedrin, it's the name of a tractate, by the way, also talks a lot about laws of a Beis Din, of a Jewish court. But the word Sanhedrin is a composition of three words. Soneh, hates to be glorified, hates honor, is not looking for any honor, will not accept any bribe. Soneh hadras din, someone who detests bribery when it comes to a judgment. That's a person you can trust. Very trustworthy, selfless, in the sense that they are not involved, they don't get caught up with any kinds of bribes. That's a side point. Anyways, so the head of the Sanhedrin, Israel's highest court, or at least to the one who serves as a leader in spiritual matters. So this Nasi means a spiritual leader, a Torah giant. Thus, the Mishnah speaks, there's a Mishnah in Tractate Chagiga that speaks of the Nasi and his deputy, called the Av Beis Din in Hebrew, the head of the court. So the Nasi is above him. Then there's the head of the court. He's right below the Nasi, he's the deputy. So we see it's relating to people that were in the Sanhedrin. Torah scholar. Also, a Talmud states, Hillel, you are called the Nasi of Israel. This is the famous Hillel, in the Talmud. Page 290, next page. And the Rebbe continues. We find it mentions Hillel, Shimon, and Gamliel. This is taken from a Gemara. Served as Nasiim. They weren't kings. They were Torah giants. They served as Nasiim. They were leaders in the Sanhedrin. For 100 years in the era of the Beis Hamikdash, while the Beis Hamikdash was still standing, where there were kings in that generation, there were kings while we had the Beis Hamikdash. And yet, we had other people who were called princes, leaders, Torah leaders. So we see they're not the same. Although at that time, there were kings among the Jewish people, including righteous kings who were regarded as kings according to Torah law. There's even a fundamental difference between, and the Rebbe goes further, there's even a halakhic difference. Could a Torah scholar forego his honor? Yes. He decides not to fight for his honor and forego his honor, allowing people not to stand for him, he's allowed to. A king is not allowed to. So we see his authority is so high and he has no right to, he's on such a high position that you're like in Hashem's position. You're not allowed to give it up. You can't be mochel, you can't forgive and say, don't stand up for me. So we see that the halacha of a king is different than the halacha of a nasi. That's how different they are. There's even a fundamental difference in halacha between these positions as reflected in Torah law. When a nasi desires to forego the honor due to him, he may forego it. When a king desires to forego the honor due to him, he may not forego it. It is possible and logical to say that a somewhat similar distinction exists within the vernacular of the Torah when describing the levels of nasi and king, as both exist within the king himself. There could be two parts to the king part of the king and the nasi part of the king. In one person, you could also have two different powers, energies. One is the nasi energy, one is the king energy. Among the differences, now here comes the Rebbe where he explains, he goes into the whole difference of the function. Among the differences between a king and a nasi, when described in the lexicon of the sages, are A king's role is to execute judgment and wage wars, or to refer to the wording of the Torah mentioned above, a king leads them out and leads them in. How to live their lives, how to fight all kinds of enemies, both physical enemies and spiritual enemies. However, his function is not to deliver halakhic rulings. Hence, the law is that the kings of the kingdom of Israel may not serve as judges. They don't belong in that position. And even the kings of the house of David, who may judge the people, page 291, may not be included amongst the Sanhedrin. They may judge people, but not as part of a Sanhedrin. So either if you're not from the house of David, just king, not from Malchus Beis David, you can't at all judge, not your field. And if you happen to be from Malchus Beis David, you could judge, but you can't be part of a Sanhedrin. So we see how different these two roles are. The intent of the words execute judgment is that the role to execute judgment, not to rule, but to execute the judgment. That's what the king is for. Is that the role of a king is not so much to inquire and investigate an issue and arrive at a halachic ruling regarding the judgment and the law as it is fundamentally to execute judgment. His job is not to, how to arrive at the ruling, but rather once the ruling is there by the Sanhedrin, his job is to make sure that you follow the rules and the judgment is executed. People to enforce the law, to enforce and carry out the judgment of the Torah that the rabbinical court delivers. Alternatively, it could refer to the judgments that a king must make. Sometimes a king also must make judgments, but not a Torah ruling. By royal fiat, edicts enacted according to what it is necessary at a given time. The king is allowed to come up with something for the sake of, for example, he sees that there's people are being very promiscuous when it comes to keeping Shabbos. He can punish people, have people punished for the most slightest, deviation from the law. You see, people are treating modesty, permissively, and there's, downgrading certain halachas are being not kept and not being respected. So he can make sure to enforce the law. He can punish people, even though the Torah does not give that ruling. The halacha doesn't say that, but the king has that power to make sure that people are in check. But he's not part of the Sanhedrin. By contrast, the primary role of a Nasi, one who is referred to by the term Nasi by the sages, is to serve as the head of the Sanhedrin. To quote Rambam's wording, the one who is foremost in wisdom and knowledge among them is appointed as the head. He acts as the Rosh Yeshiva. He is called Nasi by the sages in all sources. He assumes the position of Moshe, our teacher. In Rambam's words, the members of the Sanhedrin are the pillars of instruction from whom statutes and judgments issue forth for the entire Jewish people. It is only that, in addition to his primary function of a Nasi, Moshe, as the shepherd of the Jewish people, served as the king of Israel, overseeing and managing all the affairs and needs of the Jewish people as a whole. As we'll see later, Moshe had both. So, of course, the Torah leader, the greatest Torah scholar, Moshe received the Torah from Hashem, but he was also a melech in the sense that he was a shepherd, and he took care of the Jewish people, managing all their affairs. What they needed, they needed man, they needed food, they needed the water from Be'er Shel Miriam. Later on, Moshe gave the Jews had that as well through him. So any kind of need the Jewish people have was afforded through by Moshe. That's A. Then we have B. So A goes back to two differences between a king and a Nasi. Number two, the nation, here's the very important one. A king does not get a salary. He doesn't get paid for being king. So how does he live? You belong to him. He can take at will. Of course, we're talking about kings that were righteous kings. At will, for the sake of the government, for the sake of the country, he can take private property, confiscate it, if there's a need for it. The entire nation belongs to the king. He belongs to them, they belong to him. We'll soon see in the speaker here. Here's the very important difference between a Nasi and a Melech. B, the second difference, not only what role they play, but how they are provided. The nation must provide the king with all his desires, as Rambam states at length. He just says one word, and they must comply. Now, we're talking about a king, by the way. This is not a dictator, a ruler. A dictator is not someone who the people accepted willingly. That's a dictator. That's not what we're talking about here. A melech is someone who malchusai b'rotzon kibbul aleim. A melech is someone who didn't want the job, because he felt maybe he's not worthy. He had the humility. And then when the people beg and say, Yechi HaMelech, we need you, we can't live without you, it arouses within him the desire to be their king. But it all starts from their desire, from their passion of they can't live without him or without her, whoever it is. Malka. So this is the function of a melech, that he's there, but he became a melech through our own, we wanted him. The nation must provide the king with all his desires, as Rambam states at length, and people gladly are happy to give. He doesn't have to ask them permission, but they're glad. It's a Sichos, an honor for the king to take whatever he needs, because they believe that whatever he's completely selfless, and whatever he's doing is for the sake, the betterment of the people at large, and even for that individual person who got his property confiscated. King will probably compensate him otherwise, but he doesn't have to ask permission. The entire nation belongs to him. That's number one. Continuing on page 292.
Ask permission of like, how would he approach like confiscating someone's property?
I wouldn't do it himself, but he would have, whatever, soldiers that would come. They would say, this is the rule of the king, and they have a letter, this is what he wants. And you couldn't say no. That's what you voted for, and was understood in advance that that's what he would do if he would make you trust, because it's a person who has completely self-worth. Not discussing the kings of today, the monarchs we have. They're not really kings, they're kings by name. But we mean a real king, a rebbe, person who rules and cares about his people to the extent that their needs are his. I mean, his needs are their needs, and their needs are his needs. It's all like on one body. Then he goes further and he says on page 292, a king is entitled to take from a nation valiant men and employ them as soldiers for his chariot and as footmen to run before him in a war. He's entitled to take from the craftsmen. He's entitled to take fields, groves, and vineyards. He's entitled to a tenth of the produce of the seed crops. That's what a king can do. A nasi can't do that. Nasi is a paid worker. A nasi gets paid for his services. I have my own private life. I'm working for you. I'm giving you Torah knowledge. I'm your teacher. I got to get paid. So he gets paid. He can't do things without permission. He can't take from them. They owe him a salary, wages for his work, like anybody else. A nasi, by contrast, a nasi, like any other communal leader, may also derive his livelihood from the community. Yes, they have to support him. He's not an individual who just deals with, one person. He's an activist, a public activist. But since he works on its behalf, but he may only take a specific amount, what he's worth. We pay you what your service is worth. Only what he needs to sustain himself. He's not like a king whose every wish must be satisfied by the people. And we're going to soon see there's a weakness and a strength in the king. The king is extremely weak and extremely strong. Strong at will. He says something and his wishes are fulfilled just like that. 1, 2, 3. No one even questions because we trust him. Number 2, he has nothing of his own. King has no salary, has no life support except from what his people give him. He doesn't have a private life where he goes, take my time off and I'll do something, for extra activity. I need to make a living. No. Their lives, they support him. He doesn't get any support from anywhere else except for his people. He doesn't have any self-support. That's a weakness. Completely subservient, dependent on the people. But yet, one word, and his wishes are fulfilled. A nasi doesn't have either one of those two. Doesn't have the strength of a king or the weakness of the king. What's the strength of the king? He can just take whatever he wants? No, he can't do that. It's a paid salary. Number 2, he doesn't have to only give a share, only be a nasi. He can also have a side job if he wants, and have other means of parnasa. Doesn't have the weakness that his entire finances, little livelihood is dependent on others. So he has a strength. He doesn't have the strength of a melech and the weakness of a melech. I'm going to soon see the heart and brain have exactly that. Now we're going to understand why the king is compared to the heart and not the brain. Let's first get a little deeper in the Sichos. A giver or a taker is the title of chapter 4. The second point above, that the king takes everything he desires from the people, reflects a paradox. There's a paradox here. On the one hand, it demonstrates the king's power, that the entire nation and all their possessions are under his authority. His relationship to them resembles the Talmudic statement, whatever a servant acquires is acquired by his master. You don't have any autonomy at all. But the king may take anything he desires from them. That's his power, his strong part. That's one side of the equation. The paradox is, on the other hand, it shows the weakness of the king in relation to the people. He requires the nation to satisfy all his desires. I once asked the Rebbe, where does he get all this? How do you know all this thing? How do you know? How do you see all this? Basically asking, how do you have Ruach HaKodesh? Where do you get all this power, this strength? The Rebbe's answer, from the people from the Chassidim. Get you from the Chassidim. As I told you my famous story when I was in Florida. 3 years on Shlichus as a Bacher in 1974. Yeah, that old. 1974 to 1977. We were bought from them, sent by the Rebbe to start a yeshiva in Miami Beach, Florida, the first yeshiva in the country, outside of the local yeshiva here. A Shlichus yeshiva, Bacher. At the end of our Shlichus, we turned the 2 years into a third year. We asked the Rebbe if we can stay one more year, because we had some more work to do. But at the end of the third year, we're getting a little restless. I got a little restless, and we decided we have to. So a friend of mine and myself, a colleague of mine, we heard about a woman graphologist who analyzes character through writing, handwriting. It's called graphology. And we heard a Jewish woman, an elderly woman, very, very good at her job. Oh, really? I bet she doesn't know us. So I wrote my signature, my sloppy signature, and my friend had his signature. I gave it to her. And in a moment, she described us to the T, like, whoa. We decided the next day we're going to do something. We're going to do something a little mischievous. We're going to cut out the Rebbe's signature. Because in those days, it was possible not to know who the Rebbe was. 1970s. The Rebbe has a letter where he signs his name in English. First name, without even rabbi. First name, and then Schneerson. In English. We cut it out, and we gave her, do you have time? Can you analyze this handwriting? Who is it? Never mind, just a friend of ours. Okay, I don't have time right now. Call me tomorrow morning. So I'm in the base medrash with a friend of mine. At 12 midnight in the base medrash where we were sitting and learning, I was sitting and learning. I like to learn. But 12 midnight, there was a phone in the base medrash. The phone rings. My name is Joseph, of course. My friend's name was David. So she knows about Joseph and David, the Sheba boys. So she calls, someone answers the phone. Neither one of us answers the phone. Can I speak to Joseph or David? Is there any, I don't know, it's late. Joseph or David? Oh, it is. I think I know who it is. I go over to the phone and I said, this is Joseph. Joseph, is that you? Yes. Who is this man? I said, he's the leader of world Jewry. Come to my office tomorrow morning. I got to tell you something. I come to the office the next morning. And she says, let me tell you, he's off the charts in two opposite factors. His desire for accomplishments is unheard of. No one has that kind of appetite for accomplishment, for taking over the world, mamish, changing the world. I've never seen, she didn't say the word mamish, I'm saying the word mamish. She said, I've never seen anyone like that, with that power, that resolve to forge. And does he have aspirations? Does he have wishes? Whoa. People like that usually get depressed very quickly when their wishes are not fulfilled. He's off the chart. The word despair, the word giving up is not in his dictionary. This man doesn't give up. And don't get into his way. He wants something, stay out of his way. Then he said something else. He said he does not live by his own he doesn't have a personal life. He doesn't have a personal life. He doesn't live by what he eats and what he drinks. That prevents him from dying. What gives him life is what his followers do or what they don't do. He was quoting Tanya, a not religious woman. He was quoting almost word for word of what it says in Tanya. We went, what? My eyes are popping out of our head. We complained about that for who knows how long. Could you imagine? And then she said, can I speak to him? Not exactly, but he's coming, but he's going to be talking from 770 via hookup. And we have a hookup, in our yeshiva hall, so you can hear him. It was before Purim. I'm coming. She didn't understand the word, but Yiddish. No one translated. She said his voice matches his handwriting. These were her words. His voice matches his handwriting. But what she said was, he doesn't have a life of his own. That's exactly what I was saying over here. Man has no life. It's just, who should I help? This person or that person? Completely devoted, dedicated to others. There is no self. The whole self is how I affect others. The doctor said when the Rebbe had a heart attack, and he was thinking about when can he give the next. The doctor, this man doesn't have any self value. It seems like all he thinks about is how he can deal. Which campaign should he work with? Is it with this or with that? But there's no question. What about your own health? What about this? What about maybe taking it easy? No, it's not even on his mind. Not that he has to struggle and work on himself. It's like it's so natural. He's so naturally a person who belongs to the public. As what did the Rebbetzin say about when they started the Svarim? Not only do the Svarim belong to the Chassidim, my father, the Rebbe, belongs to the Chassidim. He doesn't have a life of his own. A Rebbe does not have, a Melech does not have a life of his own. That's the heart, as we'll see in the Sichos. The heart, unlike the brain is remote control, sends messages, but it doesn't move. There's no quiet, stop still. I'll give you guidance when to move your hand, when to move your leg, it sends out messages, that's the power of the brain. It controls, but from remote control. It doesn't get involved. It has its own life. It's the map, it's the fuse box of the entire body. The heart, expanding, contracting. This is why the heart is so fragile, so delicate, much more than the brain. Heart attacks. Not the brain attack, heart attacks, because the heart is constantly working, expanding. It's not there for itself, it moves. And what else is important? Not mentioned in this either. What's the heart giving? Messages to the body? Of itself, blood. What's in the heart? Blood. What's it giving? Blood. What's the brain sending out? Not sending out brain. You don't get brain substance in the rest of the body. You get the messages, rules. How to move your hand, how to move your leg, what to do, but it doesn't give of itself. So there are leaders who have their own private life and they give. Then there's a Rebbe, a Melech, whose job is to give of himself, so the people should have his giving of his own nature to other people. The nature of a Chabad Chassid, I tell you, is non-judgmentalism. Don't be judgmental. Every Jew is a diamond. Every Jew, chaparai, and more, as much skill as you can put on, as many skill as possible. Get as many women to light candles, and we start caring. We becoming so caring about. It bothers us if someone else does not put on the film. It really bothers us. And also simcha, but making Baalei Tshuva and the simcha. Whatever referred to the preacher, his name is Yosef Yitzchak. Yosef is the one who was able to change over the whole world. People were dying from hunger. He changed the world. He transformed. He was a transformative person. Was Joseph ever sad and depressed? He had a reason to be depressed. He lost his mother, sold by his brothers, hated by his brothers, all alone in a dungeon. And what does he do? He asks the people in the dungeon, "Why are you so sad? Why are you not sad? Why are you so sad?" And then he saved the world with that. He became the viceroy, became an interpreter, dream interpreter. Fine, good. That's Chila River. That's Yosef. We acquire that from the Rebbe. He gives, the heart gives of the blood. Blood is chayis. Life. It's a good, simcha, joy, not challenges become opportunities. So the Rebbe gives of himself. That's what a melech is. He's the heart. Now I understand why the melech is called the heart. And it also works when it comes to emotions versus intellect. Just like the heart, physical heart is different in the brain, so too our emotion is very different than intellect. Intellectual people, keep quiet for a second. I need to concentrate. The opposite of interaction. I need to calm, cool, and collective. If you want to think straight, don't be biased. Because if you have any bias, if you any bribe, even if your heart bribes you, you can't think straight. So the whole idea of intellect is stay removed. So the concept of warmth is not a warm concept. It's the concept about warmth, but the concept is not warm. You stay removed from the subject you're talking about. You start getting too in touch with the subject, that's not safe anymore. Then it becomes bribed. It's diluted with self-interest. You have to be totally objective, removed. Heart it's all about relationship with other people. You move me. I'm moved. I'm affected by you. Midas, emotions, like motion, emotions. You're emotive. You're moving. You're not stationary. Let's see the rest of the Sichos inside. I don't know if we'll finish it, but we'll see the rest of the Sichos inside. Okay. Second point above, the king takes everything he desires from the people, reflects the paradox. I'm sorry. Hold on. Where are we holding? Said that already? Yeah. So page 293. No, the bottom of 290. Let's see the last paragraph, 292. You know, let's start again from a giver and taker. I don't know if I did enough. The second point above, that the king takes everything he desires from the people, reflects a paradox. On one hand, it demonstrates the king's power, that the entire nation and all their possessions are under his authority. His relationship with them resembles the Talmudic statement, whatever a servant acquires, yeah, we did this, is acquired by his master. For the king may take anything he desires from them. Wow, what power he has. On the other hand, it shows the weakness of the king in relation to the people. He requires a nation to satisfy all his desires. The other members of the nation receive their livelihood through their own actions, from everything they do, whatever they do. Even a communal leader, page 293, who derives his livelihood from the community, works. He does work. He earns his income from his efforts in leading the community. By contrast, everything a king receives, you don't have one?
Now we have the first step.
Oh.
Give that last.
Oh, I see. This is a new one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the king is different. He's not an independent entity. He's not a person who has a private life when he acts as king. Indeed, the very definition of his position lies in terms of his responsibility to his people. Therefore, he receives from the people. And they see that. They catch that. They see that in him. Wow, he's so selfless. It's like we ask him, should I do this? You know, it's what Hashem wants, not what he wants. There's no he. It's what's best for us. His decisions are based on how he sees what's best for our neshama, where we should go on Sichos, what we should do in life. What's better? That's a person who you just want so much. We want that kind of person. We accept that kind of person. We're looking, we're thirsty for truth, thirsty for selflessness. It's so elusive. This is what our Rebbe is all about. He gets a regular person derives his livelihood on page 293 on top from the community. Works, he earns his income from his efforts in leading the community. The paid worker. By contrast, everything a king receives, he receives from his people. That's his weakness. The paradox is self-explanatory. The entire reason for their being a king with regard to his function as that role is to lead them out and lead them in to serve his people. He is not an independent entity. Indeed, the very definition of his position lies in terms of his responsibility to his people, therefore he receives from his people. Based on the above, says the Rebbe, chapter 5, to exist for the sake of others. We can understand the comparison of a king specifically to the heart, and not to the head or the brain. Among the differences between the heart and the brain are the following. The heart is constantly moving, expanding, and contracting, reflecting the mystical sequence of Rasu V'Shuv. I have a whole story to tell you about that. Rasu V'Shuv. You know what Rasu V'Shuv means? It means advancing and retreating. It literally means that when a person has this passion to want to become one with Hashem and almost say goodbye to this world in ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, but then he says, wait, that's not why I'm here for. Come back down to earth. The Alter Rebbe took a bagel right after he was about to leave this world in spiritual ecstasy. He held on to a bagel to be able to, no, stay here. The Rebbe, when the Rebbe says the Maimon Chassidus, you know this? That he holds on to a handkerchief wrapped around his fingers. And the reason for that is to keep him down here. The Rebbe is saying a Maimon is not just giving a lecture, a shear. He's connecting up there and you get carried away. So we don't have such problems. But the Rebbe has these kind of problems, and he has to deal with it. So, yeah. What?
What does it mean where it says to lead them out and lead them in?
I mean, so it basically means war, lead them into war. Simply means wars, that he leads them in a war and takes them back home when the war is over. But it also means a lot more than that. It means takes care of them, in all different kinds of ways. Doesn't only mean wars, relative to wars. Takes them out, brings them in, means in all their needs. He's caring about when they need to perhaps leave to go to a different city, when they need to come back. Includes a lot of all the needs of the people, included in those few words, yes.
What happens to the king's children if he has no private life? How is he able, what does parenthood kind of look like to the king?
Takes over.
Sorry?
What's your question?
Question is what if his whole life is dedicated to the people?
Yeah.
Is his family accepting of that and they just kind of readjust? Or would you
Obviously.
look to the king as an example of how to make your family a priority? But then again, we know that's priority in the nation. So
It goes together. Obviously his priority is his family too. Doesn't abandon his family. His family are of the same people he's with him. The Rebbe's mother referred to the Rebbe as the Rebbe, not my Mendelek. Referred to the Rebbe as the Rebbe. She said there's no one like him. She said, you know, my my husband was, whoever he was, the Rebbe's father was an incredible, unbelievable person. Finish the Rebbe. Look at that. He referred to the Rebbe as the Rebbe. He came to Fabrengen, not just to get nakas, you know. Not bad, huh? What's his son do for a living? The leader of the generation.
How do your two other sons feel about that? How do you think your two other sons felt about that?
Well, one son passed away in the war. The other one was completely in a different world. He was a scientist. There was no competition with it. The Rebbe was the oldest anyway, the oldest. And the Rebbe's second brother, one brother passed away, was killed in the war, Beryl. And the word I saw Ayer Leib, who the Rebbe talks a lot about, was a brilliant genius. And the Rebbe's father and the Rebbe and his brother used to converse in different lingo. The Rebbe would talk Hasidic language of Hasidus, the father Kabbalah, and his brother philosophical language. But we'd all understand each other. So, but we're different, huh?
You fly on that wall.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stories about how the Rebbe kept a secret. His brother is passing from his mother. So a lot to complain about. I can't do it over here. Okay. So what's the heart? What's the heart? Let's hear the heart. Right. It's constantly moving, expanding, and contracting, reflecting the mystical sequence of Rasa V'Shuv. Yeah. So the heart, why is it that why does the heart have one gigantic flow of blood? Why is there back and forth, expansion and contraction? Why did Hashem make it that way? Because life, it says like this, life, the life of the world, the life that Hashem gives the world for its existence, has to go back and forth through it. Also breathing. On the one hand, that energy has to be connected to its source. The source of that life has to get rejuvenated. To give life, you have to be connected to life. So the life energy that Hashem separates to be the life force of the world must be going in a backward and forward motion. It has to, on the one hand, be connected to its source, otherwise it can't give life. But if it gets too connected to its source, the life it will give won't be on the level that the world needs to hear. So in order for it to be the life that relates to us, it has to sort of separate from its source and come back again, rejuvenate it, come back again. Like a chassid who has to every now and then he has to go get rejuvenated, come back to get a spiritual refilling, to get the chayes to be able to affect others. But if you stand in awe, if you just simply in the world where the Rebbe is, you won't be able to do any shlichut properly. So you got to connect to the people, but you can't disconnect from the Rebbe. If you connect to your people, then forget where you came from, and you lose your connection as a chassid of the Rebbe, then you end up getting affected by them. So you have to be able to go through a motion of Rasa V'Shuv, of connect, and then temporarily disconnect, connect to the people, and then connect back and connect. So this is true about everything. Life of the soul to a body is so distant from the soul. The soul has to go through, the life that it gives has to go through a constant back and forth motion, which is why we breathe. And the heartbeat, the pulse, are all Rasa V'Shuv. I have a story, but I can't tell. There's no time for the story. A Rasa V'Shuv story. But anyways, that results in continually. Let's finish at least this paragraph. Continually. Wow, page 294. Beating pulse. You have a beating pulse. It continuously goes back and forth. By contrast, the brain is motionless. True, the vitality of the entire body derives from it, but the brain itself remains at rest. B, the heart is the weakest of all the organs. Because it's so active, it's the weakest. Even weaker than the brain, as the Zohar states, the heart is a soft, delicate, fragile organ and very weak. It can be said that these two properties are dependent on one the other. The heart is soft and weaker than all the other organs because it exists solely to provide life energy to all the limbs of the organs. It has no independent role of its own. As it were, its sole function is to provide life, blood for the body. It belongs to the body. Accordingly, it is constantly active, expanding and contracting, and this ongoing movement shows that the sole purpose of its existence is for the sake of the continually providing life to the limbs and organs of the body. And B, on the other hand, it is weak because it does not exist for itself, but for the other limbs and organs. It's a very weak entity. It's dependent. By contrast, the brain is more remote from the other limbs and organs of the body. True, it is a source of vitality for the entire body, but it remains distant from them. This also shows that it is an entire entity of its own. It is only that life energy for all the limbs and organs emanate from it, but it remains on its own. It sends out neural messages to the body, but it remains where it is. Therefore, the brain never moves. It remains separate from the limbs and organs of the body. As such, A, it is not weak entity like the heart, and B, it is an entire entity unto itself, has its own autonomy. It doesn't only live for others. Page 295, let's finish till the end of the paragraph, end of the chapter. For this reason, a king is specifically compared to the heart. As explained in section 4 above, a king also manifests the two qualities that characterize the heart. He is continually concerned and involved with the people, leading them out and leading them in. Next week, Mr. Hashem, I will elaborate a little bit more on what leading out, leading in means. For the entire function of a king is to serve the nation. B, for this reason, there is an aspect of weakness associated with the king in relation to the people at large, as reflected in his receiving all his needs from them. What we do affects him tremendously, more than you could possibly imagine. His whole raison d'etre is us. There's no him. That's his him, no private life. And that's what a Rebbe gets into. Moshe Rabbeinu, before the burning bush, he moved, he said, let me move away from here to get there. What do you, just get there. Obviously, if you're going somewhere, you're moving away from where you previously were. Very strange wording. Asura mekan, I will turn away from here to go there. Is that how you speak? I will turn away from my house to go to shul. He's going to shul. The answer is he was turning away from his private life as an individual to become a public figure, to become a Rebbe. To care, to see the burning bush, see Jewish suffering. He saw Treblinka, he saw Auschwitz, he saw all the suffering, all the throughout millennium, and was wondering the fire of torture of Jews, and they're still there. How do they survive? And if they're so incredibly, invulnerable that they remain intact even through such suffering, why are they suffering then? What's the reason? Why is God punishing people that are so holy that nothing can destroy them? That was his question. And when Hashem tried to give him the answer, he hid his face. He did not want to hear any answers. I don't want to have any explanation as to why good people have to suffer. I don't want that. Because if I'm going to hear that, I'm not going to be able to cry with my kindle. I want to cry with my flock. I don't want to be on your side, looking from your bedroom to see what's going on in the world. I want to see it from their perspective. I want to have a Geula Shlema that they can appreciate. But Hashem says, you win. I'm going to bring the Geula. I tested you to see if you're going to take it, but you didn't take it. You said, I'm on their side. Thank you, God, but no thank you. What a gift. Could you imagine a gift to see the world from God's perspective? Moshe says, not my role. I'm a leader. I don't accept it. I have responsibility. I'm a melech. I don't respond. I'm not going to sit and enjoy being in your bedroom, perceive the world. Then I can't cry. I want to cry with them. The Rebbe said of Fabring in 1984, 1983 actually, Shana Rabbah, the Rebbe cried in the middle of Shana Rabbah, Sichos. Why is it that we're in Gola so long? I have no answer. There's no explanation for it. Why does Hashem make it? There shouldn't be any explanation. Because if it would be irrational as to why we're in Gola so long, we wouldn't be able to cry so much. But our mind would say, we have to be this way. But not when we don't understand it, when it makes little sense, now we can cry with an emes. So Hashem wants us to cry with an emes, so it gave no reason for it. Anyways, have a wonderful day. Next week I'll do a different secret, but I want to finish the secret too. So keep the secret if you want to keep it, or give it back if you don't want to keep it. Yeah, I'm gonna go over the last part of the sikha and then also review a few details that might not be so clear. Okay? Yeah?
In regards to this last point that you just on, during the summer, you were saying like, why do we refer to the 3 weeks? Like, it comes out of time.
Right.
And you said that we need to feel that Golos is never gonna end for us to really feel like the amazingness of the Geula.
The never ending, looking like there's never ending golas is a sign that we're about to come to the never ending geula. Yeah.
That really affects me.
I'm happy. Affects me too. What am I here for? I'm here sure. Help you.
Like the heart, Rabbi.
Trying to do like what?
Thank you for teaching.
What?
Thank you for teaching.
That's my job.
It's good work anyway.
Do you
The
teach
pleasure.
at other places?
What?
Do you teach at other places?
Yeah, why? Yeah, not so much as I used to, but yeah. I teach Hassan also, across from the board.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Is that like what fills up most of your time? Like your main gig?
A lot of the time.
All right, that's off. Thank you so much.
Welcome you. Keep on keep on. Only slave on that question.
Why?
Why do we ask questions on what not on day?
Oh,
We're free now, we can ask.
wow.
Nothing to ask you.
That's right.
Won't be a thing to happen.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.